Join us on Now We Consume. Take in the knowledge, take in the laughs, indulge in the topics with us. The Now We Consume podcast will take you through the parts of your day you normally dread. Why suffer through the existential crisis of life alone when you can do it with us? And now we consume.
This is not meant to be a conspiracy episode or podcast, but we may cover some topics that dance that line like a toddler dances on their mother's last nerve. This podcast is rated I, for immature audiences only.
Hello and welcome back to Now We Consume. I am your host Gibbs, and along with me is my co-host Pip.
Picking my nose like we're picking out books for today's topic.
Anyways, I never know where you're going to go with that.
I never know where I'm going to go with that. I shoot from the hip. Like Johnny Sins. I'm sorry, I had to bring Johnny Sins back into the rotation.
I don't know, you're really into him lately. I don't know. Whatever you're into, not here to judge.
Like many boys across this nation, he was one of my idols growing up, okay?
I mean, that man had so many illustrious careers. I don't know how he could do it. He had a lot of time.
I know. That's why I'm a jack of most trades.
He truly is my favorite astronaut plumber. But anyways. Right. So, I did want to give a shout out and say thank you everybody that's been interacting with us on social media in the comment sections, watching and everything. We've been seeing a great uptick lately and we really appreciate it. As always, please join the Discord if you guys want to interact with us, kind of see what's going on when we upload episodes and whatnot, and kind of get an idea if we want, any sort of topics, any sort of interactions, stuff like that coming up.
We actually have a couple that have been suggested by viewers that we're going to be getting into. So that's a proof in the pudding, just like the tapioca mix, that we pay attention to the listeners.
Don't even go there. Don't do it. I swear to God.
You don't want the tapioca pudding there, Gibbs.
Nope. 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 I don't want to be hearing in the background. Why is it chunky? I don't know.
It's so chunky, Gibbs.
But anyways, so we were having a discussion a while ago, and this topic was kind of spurred on by a few things that have happened politically. We're not going to dive into the politics of this as much as kind of more of like a factual, objective kind of discussion and our opinions as to what's going on. But anyways, we want to talk about the truth about the education system in America. And why I'm saying truth is there's a lot of subjective ideas that people kind of assert as a reality in the American education system. And we kind of want to talk about the history of why it is the way it is, why it's structured the way it is, and kind of the pros and cons as to the way it's been operating. The reason why this came up was because the other day, Donald Trump was talking about getting rid of or defunding the Department of Education. And there are many people that feel like that was a department that brought a lot of good and a lot of standards to the country. But as somebody that was in the education system that left, that has actually studied this stuff, I was very much in the opposing view of looking at it statistically. The Department of Education in America, while it was a good idea, did not fulfill its role, even in the slightest, and if anything, caused immense harm. And we'll discuss with that in here as to why. But there are some pros with it too, so I'm not going to just say it was all bad.
Right.
But anyways.
And keep in mind, when he says getting rid of the Department of Education, he's not closing the doors on the entire thing. There are parts of it that will be sticking around. And oddly enough, it's the parts that are actually working. People have been screaming, "Oh, the food lunch or the school lunch programs are going to go away," and all this other shit. No, that's the Department of Agriculture that handles the school lunch programs. A lot of people didn't know that. Mm-hmm. So that's a whole separate deal, and Department of Ag is not going anywhere.
What he's basically covering in that defund for the Department of Education mostly has to do with curriculums, standards, which that's a whole separate discussion on why. Well, we get into that, why that was an issue. But also, really, a lot of it was just administrative costs. A lot of it was due to poor standardized testing and even just a big waste of money on some stuff that were like studies on different testing methodologies and whatnot that didn't lead to anything. And when you're spending billions of dollars, or sometimes even trillions of dollars over the course of decades and not really getting anything for it, what's the point? What are you doing?
Right.
But, oh, sorry, I thought you were going to say something.
No, yeah, no. The sheer volume of money that was spent over the 40 plus years that the DOE has existed is staggering. And I'll give you the total now, but we're going to touch on a lot of the breakdown later. $2 trillion has been spent on education, public education in America. And what we've gotten out of it, if anyone has seen the video from Caitlin Bennett that's been making the rounds on the web, where she interviewed people on spring break asking just basic civics questions that are actually on the exam that you have to take to become a U.S. citizen. These are college kids that she's asking, like high school and college kids. They don't know the answers to questions like, how many continents are there? What continent are you on right now? And they're in like Florida or some shit.
Because they're mentally incontinent. That's the problem.
How many justices are on the Supreme Court?
Oh, 47.
Name a country that borders that borders America.
Blue.
What country is the great? Name a country the Great Wall of China runs through. I mean, these are
Mexico.
Stupid ass questions.
As of Trump, Mexico.
Yeah. That these kids do not know the answers to. And it's like, I'm sorry. If this is taxpayer money, I want a fucking refund.
Oh, yeah. It's going to show for a while that if you talk to kids, it's weird. I think that high schoolers are more aware of what certain political parties are pushing and political candidates rather than the history of their own country or being knowledgeable about their own laws, how to be a citizen in their own country. And like, for instance, a quick little aside, how many kids have no idea how to do basic life skills at all? And this includes things like get a job, do taxes, being able to actually function.
Yeah.
It's nothing, but thank God I can do a Pythagorean theorem like a bastard.
Yep.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Powerhouse of the cell, mitochondria. Yes. Like I think, I use it every single day for work, working on cars. That's all I think about is the mitochondria.
Did you happen to see the thing I posted in the notes at the very bottom?
Wee. Oh, look at that.
So I wanted to make sure that we touched on this, and we can go back over this at the end of the episode, but I'm going to go ahead and do this early on. Isn't it strange that after years of government education, 18-year-olds cannot grow their own food, build a house, fix a car, they are economically and historically illiterate, they are unaware of proper nutrition, how the human body actually works and or functions, they struggle with depression, they have zero money management skills, they have no idea how to manage, invest, or work their taxes.
Yeah.
Crazy, isn't it? But damn it, they know pronouns.
I know. It goes to show it's almost like they're not for education, but indoctrination.
I have zero issue with people being who or what they want to be.
Yeah.
But keep all that shit out of the classrooms or have a special class off to the side after the general curriculum is done. That kind of stuff needs to be set aside for something like an elective. If kids are interested in those types of subjects and issues, make it an elective course that they can take if they want, and it's not pushed on them.
I will be even harder on this one. I will say that I think teacher objectivity versus subjectivity should be something that's heavily enforced and regulated.
Yes.
My problem was that the reason why I left the education system was because I was one of the few that did not want to push a certain set of values, and my goal was for the students to never know how I lean politically, because it's not my business discussing politics with them. If anything, it's to facilitate an open discussion where, at least in my opinion, as long as your thoughts politically are within the confines of the Constitution, I will never say a word. If it's not, I will just politely say, by the way, just so you're aware, that technically goes against kind of the laws of the country, just so you're aware, but besides that, have at it, whatever. But no, so many teachers preach their subjective idea of what this country should be as objective reality. And that is one of the problems why so many kids coming out of high school have no idea what reality is.
Yeah.
They are encapsulated in this bubble where they are so used to being coddled. They're so used to getting their way. They're so used to reality being what they deem it to be. When in reality, honestly, in the real working world, nobody cares what you think or speak as long as you do your job. If you're going to start a business, great, start a business. But guess what? Nobody's hiring a plumber to listen to their politics. Fix the goddamn pipes. Like it's that simple. It doesn't matter what job you do. Unless if you want to talk politics, go do a talk show or do a podcast, or do something to where people come to you for that. But no, a lot of these kids have missed the point. And unfortunately, it's every single person around them, whether it be their parents or the education system, propping up the idea of saying, oh yeah, politics is so important to you that we're not going to teach you history. We're going to teach you subjective ideas. And that was my problem. And it still is the problem. It's becoming less so. But as long as the teachers union is allowed to donate to a particular party, it will never be unbiased.
Yeah.
And that's the route of least one of the issues today. It's ridiculous.
Keeping money where it needs to be spent on education is damn near impossible, but should be one of the core focuses.
This, a little aside, just something I thought we were going to get into later, but I feel like we're just on track with this right now anyway.
Uh-huh.
In order to have a successful country, you need to create a class of people that want to run businesses. The idea of this country, now granted, our tax system is leveraged very heavily against people without a ton of money to start businesses. So unfortunately, it's the case of even if you're out of high school and you have a great idea, you can't start a business anyway right now because you don't have the capital. You have to have a ton of capital, very good credit, a lot of things lined up, and lawyers, legal, stuff like that. So unfortunately, that system is against you. But vice versa, if you have no idea how to do your taxes, how to do payroll, how to deal with any of this stuff, how to even legally start a business, you'll never get going without some significant help. Whereas these things should be taught in high school, things like, if being efficient with math, understanding how to communicate with people, what's expected and required of you as a job market, how to have marketable and useful skills is something I know we've mentioned many times on this podcast. There's no point in you going to college and getting a degree in something that is absolutely fucking worthless. If you can't market that skill, if it's not an in-demand skill, congratulations, you're throwing your money at somebody to keep their useless skill in demand. It's this weird fucking Ponzi scheme of like, for example, I'm going to rash on this because I'm going to, and I have friends that have this degree, so I apologize if I'm picking on you, but I'm going to pick on you. If you go to college for political science, even though there's almost no job in the world that will hire you specifically because you have a political science degree, unless that job is speaking about politics, you're in a Ponzi scheme. You're in this kind of weird area where you are taking that degree to justify them teaching it so that you can go and then teach it somewhere else. And this happens with actually a lot of degrees. It's kind of insane.
Yeah.
Same thing in the high school level where they have a lot of classes where teachers, they have a degree in this, so they have the classes, but it doesn't actually do anything to help the kids. These kids are no better off. I think that's one of the problems where we need to, as a country, and really, I'm glad it's going to more to the states to decide for their curriculums. So that way they can understand in their region, their idea, what is best for these kids to learn to be competitive. Because at the end of the day, you are competing with the person next to you for your job. And I know that sucks in a lot of ways, but you have to be able to offer something of value. Because vice versa, if I am a business owner and I'm going to hire an 18-year-old, what's going to separate your kid from their kid? What's different? And sometimes it's the stupidest little thing of, wow, this kid can at least talk to me. This other kid, sure, maybe he could do the job, but he can't talk to me. This one could do the job and they could talk to me. We could have a nice conversation. We could figure stuff out. Great. At least you had a communications class. Good. You could speak proper English. And I mean proper English. Yep.
Hold that thought. Yep. Ensuring the children of today are able to effectively communicate and not mumble at people. Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to pick on my son for a minute. My oldest, to
Yeah.
listen to him talk, holy shit. I love him to death. But even his friends sometimes, I have a hard time making out what they're saying. So it's not just him. It's literally the entire, like, 25 to maybe 15 sect of kids that I've been listening to. And I feel like a lot of it started with, like was just pointed out in chat, the mumble rappers. It became a thing, and people just started trying to realize, oh, if I just am a little bit more lazy, I can get away, and you know, I don't have to move my mouth as much, and you know, I can just kind of let it go through my, you know. But it reminds me of Idiocracy, where language devolved to just grunts and shit.
Yes.
So there again, we're devolving towards Idiocracy yet again.
I think also there's a big factor. COVID played a huge factor for anybody that went to high school recently or even elementary school, any sort of that. There was a large portion of it where people weren't talking to each other. It was all text-based.
Uh-huh.
And unfortunately, a lot of schools have made it so
language skills were lost during COVID.
that there were a lot of kids that their growth was stunted by years. You're talking the Baltimore high school system. Some 8th graders have a 5th or 4th grade reading level, which is insane.
Didn't
Like-
they anyways?
Well, it's way worse. Put it that
I'm
way.
just saying.
It was already bad. Now it's way worse. The issue I'm seeing is in almost every job, unless you are truly going to be somebody that does a 100% stay-at-home job, in the working world, you have to be proficient in speaking with people. Not just passable, but proficient and pleasant in order for people to like you. Because I will tell you right now, I have gotten jobs that I was not qualified for because they're like, wow, this guy presents himself well, can speak really well, really clear communicator. We'd like to work with him. And I did very well, and it was great. However, I've met people that are well qualified, but they do not communicate well or effectively. Nobody ever told them. And they wonder why nobody hires them.
Yep.
And unfortunately, that's what's required in most situations, even going to college. If you go to do like a college interview or something like that, or if you go take these classes, especially if you want to get into very competitive fields where you have internships and you have to know people and you have to network, if you're not somebody that's willing to be social and get to know these people, you're not going to go very far, or not as far as you could go. It's unfortunate we live in a world where it's dominated by social interactions. And a lot of these schools do not help these kids because a lot of it either goes online. And I'm not saying schools have to force your kids to spend all day talking to one another, because there are elements of academia to where, sure, you should be able to study independently, take tests independently, assess your own knowledge individually. But you also kind of have to work with people. Now, I don't think you should be graded as a group, because I hated those fucking projects when I have to rely on someone else for my work. No. But you should have to talk to other people, talk about your thoughts on things. How do you come to these conclusions? I think that's very important, to be able to state an opinion and stand your ground on it, to be able to argue, to be able to discuss, to agree or disagree and be able to have some sort of point behind it. All of that has been kind of lost.
Yeah.
Because going back to the original point of, in a lot of high schools and a lot of curriculums, there isn't a margin to be able to discuss things. It's either right or wrong. It's either you have the correct opinion or the non-correct opinion. And unfortunately, as somebody that is a student of history, a lot of that shit is neither right nor wrong. A lot of it is very subjective, and you can take things several different ways.
I thought history was just history.
Yeah, history written by the victor. Good
Written
sir.
by the victors, absolutely.
That is the problem. One of the best examples I will have. So I'll tell you guys this in chat. Because I'm a history nerd, I have history books written by in England in 1890. I have a couple written in 1920, 1930. I have some German 1910, 1920 history books. I have a French one, which that one I have to spend the time and actually like decipher that one. I used to take some French classes, but I'm not good at French. I'm barely good in English.
Is that from like the 40s?
The French one, I want to say it was from the 20s.
Oh.
So unfortunately,
I was going to ask if it's dented and showing signs of being dropped.
No, they ripped out all the pages that were white to surrender. But
Gotcha.
But it's things like that to where you can really understand that there's a lot of things in education that do have some subjective arguments within them. Now, sure, you can argue math is objective based. Yes, absolutely. But that's when you going to apply these things and doing some other stuff. There's some things where you should be allowed to discuss and debate, and that's really just not allowed.
Since you brought up math, and since we're talking about the education system,
Yes.
I recently got into a very heated back and forth with my youngest son's math teacher.
Okay. About what? Because we're both proficient in math, so I'm curious.
Well, yeah, I kind of have to be, given my job. The teacher was upset that I was showing Connor how to do math problems.
Okay.
And it wasn't being done the way they wanted it shown.
As long as it's consistent, it shouldn't matter.
That was kind of my argument.
Yeah.
And the teacher's response was, well, this is how we're teaching it. And I'm like, that makes no sense. Like, I had her take me through the steps. And I'm like, you're adding 10 additional steps, complicating it 4 times more than it needs to be. All you're doing is confusing these children. You could have had the answer 10 steps ago. Why are you adding all this extra shit in?
So a lot of the Common Core math, I can tell you, a lot of it has to do with they try to have the proofing for that line within the next line. So the idea is technically, if you do it their way, it's very easy to see where you screw up. The problem is you have to remember how to do it their way. And if you don't remember how to do it their way, you will screw up.
Okay. So here's the other question.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not showing everybody involved in that process, how is everybody supposed to know it? Because they didn't have a class for the parents to take to learn all this new bullshit. So you have a child learning one way, a parent that was taught another way. The two are not able to dock up and meet, so you can't make any of that happen and make everything happy.
So, for the audience that didn't see the visual, you'll just have to look that up because I'm not explaining it. That being said, the thing you have to understand about the education system, they have zero intention of having you being involved with your child's education. This is my problem with the modern education system. I think it's very insidious, and a lot of teachers I don't think are aware of this. They actively do not want you involved in your child's education. I can tell you that right now. Why? Oh, because of the many districts that do sex education, stuff like that, and basically show pornography to their children. The amount of districts that will not show what actually is in their curriculums for these various different classes. There's a lot of history and English classes that they'll just not show you. It's like, oh yeah, you'll figure it out. They won't involve you. They won't tell you. They won't have, no. It's actively, unfortunately, you are not part of your child's education. That's how they view it. They view it as they are the educators. They are the teachers. They are the ones that have the degrees, the masters or the doctorates or whatever. So why would they involve you? You're not in the equation, which is terrible. Because guess what? You are with the kids the other half of the day. But the teachers don't do that. They don't involve you.
They fail to take in the parents that actually care, the parents that not only can, but will get involved, and the parents that will make the school year a nightmare for the teachers that try to screw the kids over, especially when it comes to issues.
Yeah.
I'm one of those parents, especially. Someone fucks with my kid, I will rain down hell. Somebody bullies my kid, I will bully that kid's parents, and if I have to, I will bully that other kid. I will make them cry and piss their pants at school.
We as a podcast do not officially condone or endorse bullying. I will just have to throw that out there for...
No, we should bring back bullying. Since we're in the education system, maybe we should bring back bullying. It'll fix a lot of fucking problems out there. I'll tell you that right now.
Well, the issue is a lot of schools don't actually address bullying. They have this no tolerance policy, but really it's an excuse for the school to not have to deal with it.
Yeah, it's a
They don't actually have to
non-engagement
address it.
policy.
Yeah.
Which means not so much as zero tolerance, it's just zero engagement.
Yeah. You're not allowed to interfere, intercept, do any of that stuff. It's just no.
Yeah. No, my kids are very well aware and have been taught as much. Somebody puts a hand on them, they're putting hands back.
Yeah.
And they understand they will not be getting in trouble with me as long as they don't throw the first punch. But God damn it, they will be throwing the rest.
But it's just, it's a part of that system to where you as a parent are not taken into account. And the teachers might say you are. I'll be honest.
It's all lies.
I hate to say it. I saw it because I helped out with my family and other people I know. They just don't. And if you were a teacher that did, you got yourself into more problems and issues. Because there are also legal, at least in my state, like there's certain things you can't even ask, you can't tell, you can't do certain things. You just have to kind of abide by the official curriculum, and that's that. God forbid you want to do something to help kids out. No. You just no. So, a lot of these regulations before had to do with on the federal level. So that's why going back to the original thing, I'm hoping that with the removal of some of these restrictions, it will go to the states and they'll be able to make smarter decisions about what these children actually need and what's best for them.
If they push it more towards an original foundation of the education system, it might look a little bit better. But
well, let's go back and
keep the religious stuff out of the school.
Well, yeah.
I know people are kind of both ways on that. Let's go ahead and keep religion in the household and out of the school.
Either that or the counterpoint should be religion is taught as an elective where they teach about all religions that are, all the major ones. And just you touch upon it. Be like, this is what it is, this is what they believe. All right, next one, and that's it.
Yeah. Talk about the values, the beliefs, the traditions, the different ceremonies, the different holidays, the different rituals and shit. Well, that'll get fun when you get to some of those.
Hey, but that's why I feel like that kids should be a little older when you discuss sex, and they can really understand.
Absolutely.
Because if you explain to 9-year-olds some of this stuff, they're gonna be like, "Why are you sacrificing a goat? None of this makes sense." But it's the symbolic nature for a lot of them that they would have to understand when they're older. And I feel like that's one of the problems that they push a lot of concepts on kids that, while kids are smart, they also need time to be able to understand fully that the ramifications of meaning for a lot of these things. So, start with objective reality when they're younger, and then slowly allow them to explore these topics as they get older.
By the way, the reference for sacrificing the goat does not necessarily involve any of the religions that have the pentagram. Food for thought.
No, that is in so many of them where the sacrificing and sacrificial stuff.
Yes.
It's in a lot of them, which I don't get. Why were humans so into that? Why is it just? I don't get it.
I think it was a way for some of them to get rid of their girlfriends. I don't know.
If you can confuse your girlfriend with a goat, I don't know what to tell you.
No, their goat was the girlfriend.
I was trying not to go there.
Oh, I will. But touching on the original foundation of the education system, you want to take the first part there?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, in America, weirdly enough, our education system, on its fundamental level, really hasn't changed in like 300 years. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff now, and every year there's more and more added to the curriculums and more topics, more stuff, but the base fundamentals haven't changed, which in a way is good, but in a lot of ways really doesn't reflect the modern needs and requirements for education. But anyways, back before the revolution, you're talking 15th, 16th century when Americans first land here. There's a lot going on with education at this time to where, number one, education was very costly in terms of not only a financial cost, but in terms of also material cost. You can't necessarily just get a ton of parchment, a ton of paper, a ton of ink, anything like that. as well as people to actually teach these topics. There were very often a lot of schools that would, have a couple of teachers, a couple of instructors, but also they were only located near major cities, major areas. You might have a local school in a village, but they're only going to teach things like basic writing, reading, math, and that's basically it. Maybe you'll learn some things like how to farm and how to do some other stuff, but really, you would go to school for a couple hours during the day and then go home and help your family on the farm, or help your family with whatever profession they had.
And keep in mind that the schoolhouses of those days were combined, so kindergarten through senior essentially, but it was more 8th or 9th grade would have been the equivalent, like highest level.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, you would have some kids that would maybe stay a little bit later depending on what their family does or how close they were or what they needed. But also back then, it was also seen as a privilege to go. Like, not every kid could go. There were a lot of kids that, if they couldn't afford to get there in terms of time, or maybe they didn't have boots, or they didn't have a backpack, or they didn't have any way to move materials or learn or do whatever, or if the kids maybe just couldn't handle it. It wasn't like every kid in a village was required to go. It's not like how it is today where, the kid goes, they get schooling. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Back then it was an opportunity. And many people really tried to grasp that. But again, it was very simplified compared to what we see today. Something to consider is that the Puritans that kind of came to America that fled from Europe, one of the things that they fled from England, one of the things they did recognize was that education in England at the time was a very much class-based thing, where the less educated people really couldn't get an education. There wasn't really anywhere to start. There wasn't really anywhere to go. It was very difficult to get something to actually make something of yourself. That is one of the fundamental founding, core principles that America was started with from this, was the idea in the Puritan idea, or the Quaker idea, whichever way you want to talk about when those Americans came over, was that they wanted to give that access to everyone in the community that could access to it. They're like, hey, if you
damn oats.
I know, right? It's these kids were allowed to go and get the education that could be provided to them. Obviously, it wasn't top class, it wasn't, Harvard, but it was good enough to where there were many people that were able to be educated, at least to be semi or decently literate and understand basic math. And for most any job back then, or anything that you were trying to do, that's what you needed.
That was all you needed. Yeah.
That's all you needed.
That was enough education to be able to start a business or work a job.
Oh, absolutely.
More or less.
And it was really required, because it's not like in America you were expecting a ton of more people to show up. Like back then it was, hey, we're founding this place, we're running it, we're starting this colony. We're going to need people eventually to be able to expand and do more. So they did push more than a lot of other countries to push this education.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's where we start seeing some changes. So the Revolutionary War happens. We separate from England. We become our own country. After the Articles of Confederation. Exactly. After the Articles of Confederation, everything, we become a country. And what happens is our major cities start to grow. And they start becoming bigger and bigger. So now we start developing universities. We start copying kind of what England does and start becoming one of the knowledge centers of the world. Now, obviously, we still couldn't compare at the time to London or Paris or Frankfurt or any one of the European, but we had a lot of people that were interested in the new country and the new world coming over here. So what basically happens is at this point, we have basically most of that 19th century leading up until the 1890s, where the American influence on education started to become a thing, to where they're looking at what we're doing in America, even in small things, small inventions, new types of materials, new types of assemblies. Because we have all this available land, we start setting the standard for things. And this is where the 1890s, what's widely considered in history as the Gilded Age, the idea that America now starts to become the leader in certain different areas of manufacturing and technology. This is where we start pulling a lot of very well educated people into the country, because people are trying to start businesses. They're trying to build more railways. We're just starting to see automobiles being actually developed in manufacturing. Not on a big scale, not until Henry Ford, but these are things that are all quickly, steam technology. They're all quickly happening. And America is at the forefront of it now. So we have this massive influx of all of these well-off, educated people from other countries. Now here's where you get that melting pot idea that really starts to circulate. We have all these smart people, all these universities going up, all of this stuff happening. But what they realize is America does not need more thinkers. They need more doers.
Yep.
And this is where the education starts to switch. One of the biggest problems they are now seeing in the 1890s to early 1900s, even to like 1910, is, wow, we have all these people that can think and do stuff, but the problem is they're not doing what we want them to do. They are not able to handle being in a factory for 10 hours a day. A lot of times people work in 70, 80-hour work weeks, and that was considered Monday through Sunday. That's what they did. You go to work to survive, to pay, to have some sort of living somewhere. You go home, you eat, you spend time with your family, you sleep, and that's it. That is your life. This is before any sort of working laws, any before workers' rights. We're not even into the 1950s or 60s yet before that. You are talking long, hard work days. But what they wanted to do is get people that could be good factory workers. And when Henry Ford introduced the assembly line concept, the idea that you're responsible for that one little part and you get really good and really quick at doing that one thing, that is where people said, oh, if this is going to be the new standard for factories and manufacturing, which was by far what the biggest thing America did up until like the 80s and 70s, then I guess we should train people for that. So the biggest schools that received a lot of funding, particularly from kickbacks and from taxes coming from the automobile sector, they went into the education system. They started funding local schools. They started even doing apprenticeships and other programs with local universities and colleges. So now everything gets centered around this manufacturing concept. Not 100% of everything, but the vast majority. So the paradigm switches from before 1900, 1910, before that it was how to make a functioning citizen that can do the right thing and do something for the community. And now it's how do we make an obedient worker that is okay with doing this? So,
about 150 years ago, we had a different name for those type of folks.
I'm just observing what has happened. I'm not going to disagree with you though.
Obedient workers, huh?
Hey.
Okay.
I'm not my words. Not my words. So,
well,
you have to realize too, indentured slavery was actually legal up until like the 1920s, 30s, even 40s. So it was one of those things that got rid of slavery, but then what they did is they would pay them down south, but their pay would be the exact same that they would owe in rent. So it was indentured servitude.
Yes. Trying to force people to come to the country under the guise of, we'll cover all your expenses to come here.
No.
It was the Nigerian scam of the 1940s is what it was.
Yep. Where do you think they learned it from? The Nigerians learned it from the Portuguese after all the slave trade they did.
I was going to say, did somebody else teach the Nigerians, or did they just took it and ran?
Well, they took it and ran. They're like, hey, if it worked on us, it'll work on you. My father felt for that.
That's Jamaican.
Sorry, I can't do a Nigerian accent. I in my mind, I thought I could nail it, and I butchered it, and I should be ashamed.
It's okay. We'll give you a pass on it.
It's fine.
I don't have it in the notes, but Ford was the one that came up with the 40-hour work week, didn't he?
So this is where I'm also getting into. He was somebody that was looking at productivity and efficiency. And what they had found was the idea of the 40-hour work week was the most efficient for their workers. Something else Ford did was interesting is he also had much higher pay for his factory workers. So what happens? Now all of a sudden, you're talking, this is like 1920s, 1930s. Now all of a sudden people are thinking, wow, I can go work at Ford, work 40 hours a week, and make like 20, 30, even 50% more than working at a competitor. the entire shift of the manufacturing in terms of the automotive industry goes straight towards Ford. That is why Ford made so much during World War II, because they owned so many factories and they had so much power industrially because of that
a lot
massive
of their
switch.
lines were easily converted to war materials.
Yeah, because everyone just had to get good at one thing.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't like, so what people can understand is back then with automobiles and really a lot of stuff, the term coach built today usually means it's like customized. One person does all the thing, or maybe one person does all of one type of thing. So one person does all of the leather work. Somebody does all the mechanic work. A lot of high-end manufacturers still do this today, like Ferrari, for example. They'll have one person build the entire engine and sign off on it. One person does the entire interior, they sign off on it. That used to be the way all cars were made before Ford. So the idea was they hired a small group of people that were very good at what they did. Because there are 5,000 other people maybe in that city that can build motors. They might just need a handful. But vice versa, they can only build a handful of motors a day. Whereas Ford, you can pump out thousands. And all those people to do one really good job. So, now with that industry switch, you have tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people saying, I want to work for Ford. I want to work in this setup. And now everyone else has to compete. And everyone else is looking and saying, wow, Ford was able to cut costs and produce better revenue, but then also give these people other bonuses. Like Ford was giving them company vehicles sometimes. They were giving them things like, vacations, which was never freaking heard of until that point. Mm-hmm. So by switching all of that, it really did focus on the U.S. educational system on, well, clearly that's going to be the future. Clearly that's going to be what people are going to need to be. We don't need people starting businesses. We need people to be able to work within the system from a 9 to 5, sit down, do this one job. Unfortunately, what that means is we switch from having a more organic, or what's considered the Montessori type structure for education, which is kind of working with the child to see what they want to do and what they're interested in, to, hey, this is a very structured, organized, you come in, you clock in for education, you work, you have your designated lunch hour, and that, or lunch, in my case, 20 minutes, 15 minutes at school, which is bullshit, by the way, just saying. And then you clock back in, you work till the rest of the day. And that's, weirdly enough, where a lot of our modern educational structure comes from. Which, I don't know about you, but in most any job I've worked at, because I've never worked in a factory, but in most other jobs I've ever worked at, it's never structured like that. I don't know about you, but like, I know you kind of work an interesting job, but like, for me, it's the case of, it seems like the way the education system was based on that factory system, it's not really that prevalent today.
So some of the jobs I've had, 12-hour overnights, and it was 8 hours before I could take a lunch. And my lunch could get interrupted 10 minutes into it. Working in the freezer, where it was -15 the majority of the time. The warm side was 34 degrees. Wasn't so bad over there.
Just a little cold.
Well, the cooler wasn't that bad, but the freezer sucked. I was miserable there. The people I worked with were amazing. They made that job worth going to. And I mean, like, everybody, the management, the guys I worked on the floor with, they made that place. And even the hour, 20 minutes each direction drive, they made it worth going. I made one of the best friends in my life working there, and we carpooled. Lunches there were pretty reassuringly safe. We tried to keep them to about 20, 25 minutes, but when you took it, it was maybe hit and miss sometimes.
Yeah.
Since then, it's been pretty strict, hey, I'm on lunch, don't bother me.
Yeah.
The place I'm at now, it's to the point where you can kind of go when you want, how you want. And that's all that I'm going to say on that.
Yeah. At least in my experience with most any job I've ever had, granted, I've always been in more management type roles and a few other things. it's kind of whenever you get a chance, whenever you want.
Yeah.
I can get up at any time I want and have something to eat or do stuff.
Oh
Also-
yeah, like the place I'm at now, they say they promote personal wellness, so they encourage you to get up and kind of take a walk. But
It just doesn't always happen,
no, yeah,
which I get. But I feel like there's a lot of jobs now that are a lot looser with requirements as to compared to.
some of the
What?
more upbeat, modern, younger person ran jobs, places like Google.
Mm.
One of my best friend, she works at Google. She talks about how they have entire like chill rooms with like switches and computers and just like relaxing chairs, massage chairs.
Mm.
I think she said they're in there.
Mm.
It's a very relaxed space.
But those are companies that are hyper focused on efficiency.
Yes.
So that's taking the Ford idea of efficiency to the extreme.
Yeah.
Where the idea is if they're a company that needs ideas and efficient work, they're going to put the employee comfort as a very high priority.
Yeah.
Because for some, they
A
just
comfortable
are,
employee, blood flow does make the ideas flow.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
But here's an important thing for education that I wanted to point out that I was kind of building to.
Mm-hmm.
Up until the 1950s, after World War II, being an educator wasn't necessarily something that you went to school for in terms of at the elementary or high school level. A lot of times there was a pull for people in the community that were either knowledgeable, that had maybe some backgrounds in various things, but it wasn't always people that had a degree in education necessarily. But post World War II came the big push for people to get degrees, because coming out of World War II, the people that were making big money were things like doctors, lawyers, people that had to get degrees and be specialized. And this is where it became the big push for people to get educated. That is when we started making laws about everyone had to go to school. This is where they started changing fundamentally that teachers then had to be doing it as a career, where they had to get a degree in education. And this is where things start to shift to where you start having people that maybe they never worked another job in their life other than in education. They might not have those life skills to contribute or other perspectives to come from. And what happens is, looking in the 60s and 70s, that's when the first wave of people, are brought up in the education system. They go to college to become an educator. And then they start educating other kids. And they start educating kids. So the weird thing is, this becomes a cycle of, you have people, I'm not saying this for every educator at all, but it becomes a cycle to where it is very much promoted to go into education, get these degrees, get involved in academia, but not necessarily have other things to pull from to then teach children. And then what happens is they take those ideas and run with it. They become teachers. It kind of becomes this revolving door of these same ideas getting pushed further and further along. What I'm hinting at here are certain political concepts under the ideas, like socialism, communism, and a few other things that were spoken about really as kind of concepts, because you have to realize in the 1950s, you're talking this post-World War II, America at the time, you're talking about like the Red Wave and stuff like that and the Red Scare, where we were persecuting political opponents and politicians for the idea of being a communist sympathizer or socialist sympathizer. And so a lot of these colleges were having this was considered radical at the time, to have a discussion about communism and socialism. Because these people have been brought up from this idea of they're the enemy, they're the combatants, they're, causing a lot of issues. They should be dealt with. Whereas these colleges are now having these open discussions. And some teachers who maybe some of them have maybe served in these wars, between, World War II or Korea or even Vietnam, Maybe they saw the atrocities of war. Maybe they blame the U.S. Maybe they look at and say, my country sent me from a capitalist, democratic republic, and I blame having to go over there. And they start having negative views on us, and they start to see the atrocities that, rightfully so, we committed and we shouldn't have. You're talking about all the people that were massacred in Korea and Vietnam, all the people that, between the murder of the women and children in some cases, the Agent Orange, just there's a long list of things that we did that truly were horrific. But that gave some credence in a lot of these areas to, wow, maybe Western society is the problem. Maybe communism and socialism is a solution. And it kind of becomes this idea in academia to where modern democratic republics are the issue, and socialism and communism could be the solution. And then that percolates down into modern academia, to where now, I hate to say it, there are so many cases of teachers and educators, whether it be elementary school, middle school, high school, college level, doesn't matter, being devout communists or socialists and really denouncing the country that gave them the option to be able to become an educator. There are many of them that are so removed from the reality of even the existence of other countries, what they have to go through. And the only reason I bring this up is now we have a problem in this country of teachers that lack life skills. The amount of people that I met that became teachers because their parents were teachers and their grandparents were teachers, and that's great. I like that. But if all you've ever known is teaching other people these skills or things that you've been told or regurgitate without ever having any life skills or experiences of your own to be able to kind of pull from, and then also having a teachers union that tells you how to vote and having curriculums that inherently are politically biased, it creates this weird recursive problem of everything you see, every single book, textbook, questions, curriculum, everything is all slanted one direction. Mm-hmm. And then they wonder why our education system inherently doesn't work or it's not very effective. It's because, well, unfortunately, it's so involved in pushing politics at a level that it doesn't understand. There are things that I saw in the education system, they wouldn't even understand how biased it is because to them it's considered a fact. I remember in history trying to talk about the Reagan presidency in a very objective fashion. Because in my opinion, he's actually not a very good conservative president. Because he upped taxes several of those years. He put in some honestly not very good gun laws, firearms laws, and anti-Second Amendment stuff. And he didn't really do much in terms of actually affecting the drug war. If anything, it made things worse. And those are kind of things where, in talking about personal liberties and freedoms, he actually didn't really respect those. He actually sided more of a collectivist idea, which is a little bit more of a California Democrat idea, which didn't he come from California, if I remember correctly? He kind of took a lot of it. Yeah, so this is kind of where I'm going, where he was a Republican conservative, but he's not really in terms of actual policy. He did it for a couple of things, but overall his legacy really isn't. But when I try to discuss this in a very objective light, they say, well, no, of course he's this, or of course he's that. It's like, well, but if you look at it objectively and take all the facts down and actually understand of it, it's very different.
A lot of people who are so ingrained in their thought process are incapable of objective thought. And also, before I forget it, and Zoidberg's out of my head, one other point of making all the kids go to school is they can institute tax policies to get money out of all the parents.
Well, not only that,
that's
they also have complete control over what your kids learn.
Yeah.
And that's true. They can extort your taxes. They can put in property tax, say, oh yeah, this has to go to pay the school. Whether it goes to pay the school or not is irrelevant because most parents have no way of knowing. You know, you can't follow up with your local department. As
we're finding out, the government does not know how to spend our money.
What? No way.
I just read that $1 billion was spent on a survey that had 10 questions on it.
Yes, it was from SurveyMonkey, by the way. It was literally like a copy and paste from, yeah.
Billion with a B.
Yes.
$1 billion
Yes.
was spent on a 10-question survey.
That was never that the actual the key for it, for the coding for where the answers to go and for what to do with it, was never done.
Yeah.
They won a contract to make a questionnaire, and that's what they did. No, there was nothing on about where to take the information or how to utilize it.
Yeah.
Which is great. That isn't that isn't everybody here great that they just basically took $1 billion and went, yeah, I'll just throw it in the toilet right now. I would just love to set that money on fire. That's exactly what they do. The sad part is that's only one. That's one thing.
Do you know what I could do with $1 billion for this country, Gibbs?
You know, I feel like 95% of it is not appropriate for Twitch.
You're not wrong.
But see that.
Oh, don't worry, Wookie. They're the government. They're here to help. It's okay.
Yeah, no, they're not here to help. They are not here to help.
Uh-huh.
So now we're into the current discussion of how have we really gotten here with all these other factors. Now we're seeing that really, just because you throw money at education doesn't mean you get a good education.
Yeah.
Because of all these other things with biased curriculums, biased teachers, biased education systems on top of that. And a lot of these teachers, unfortunately, not understanding that what they're teaching is inherently biased to begin with.
Right.
And all of this does not mean they're pushing stuff that's actually good for your kids. Because at the end of the day, they're pushing curriculums that justify your kid going to college. Because maybe this is my bias. This part is totally my bias from where the state that I come from. Every single kid, it was expected of you to go to college. If you were a kid that said, what if I want to go to trade school? They would laugh and say, go to where the stupid kids go at the trade school.
Shun the non-believer.
Shun them. That's how it was. Like, I will never forget. This was in May before a couple of kids were graduating. And I was asking all these kids, hey, now that all of you graduated, like, congratulations. What do you plan on doing? And I had 8 or 9 kids that say, oh, I want to go to school there. I'm like, that's great. That's awesome. Good for you. And there was this one shy kid. I was doing a piano class at the time because, history and music, I was doing music. This one kid that I got along with really well. He tried really well. He just wasn't good at piano, but he really tried. So I gave him an A. And he was like, I think I'm going to go learn a trade. And I immediately perked up and said, you're probably the smartest person in this room. And he was like, what? I'm like, yeah, which trade? Electrician. I said, dude, in this state, you'll be making 6 figures in 5 years while everybody else is 6 figures in debt. Good for you. I hope you do it. And he was like, he was awestruck. He's like, an educator actually believe. It's like, yeah, I've done that kind of work. I have done, physical. Let me tell you, it sucks for a little while, but guess what? Having a marketable skill like that.
Oh, yeah.
Way better.
100%.
Way fucking better. Absolutely. So
now I want to just kind of segue in the stat that I gave at the beginning of the episode. I want to kind of put this in a little bit. $2 trillion, trillion with a T, has been spent on American education since the Department of Education's inception. The return on investment, pretty abysmal.
Well, especially
test scores. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, especially when you look at, number one, what that money could have been spent on, but also number two, when you look at comparing us to other countries, it doesn't do well.
I'm going to mushroom stamp on that here in a second.
Right.
Test scores for American students have been consistently at or near the bottom of ranked testing for the last 30 years among 50 countries. Schools that do not follow the notion of teach to the test, however, consistently produce students that test higher on those same rated tests when asked to perform on those same tests. So you've got tests like those Montessori schools like you were talking about.
Montessori,
that however the fuck you say it. the private schools, the charter schools
Yep.
that don't follow the state standards of, well, here's the test that we have to take at the end of the quarter. We have to teach what's on here. Don't worry about that really cool subject you want to look at. This is what we have to teach. The schools that let the kids kind of learn the different stuff and go about things a different way, they have the higher test scores. Who would have thought?
I feel like when you actually treat people as individuals, you might get better solutions, a better response, a better education out of them, rather than thinking everybody's the same. Because guess what? The kids aren't. You could try and develop the best education system possible, and guess what? You're always going to have kids that flunk out and always have kids that succeed. The role of an educator should be to adapt the curriculum to best reflect on how that child learns. And they are not allowed to do that because at the end of the day, you have state testing of the stuff that reflects on you as a teacher. And unfortunately, how our teachers graded, it is not by the children of the parents. It is by the state saying, how many kids passed that? How did they do? Did they score proficient? Did they not do that? I actually have a story. Because
hold on.
Yep.
And that's why they've been lowering testing standards through the years so that more students pass and it pads their numbers.
Because those schools get more funding based off the test scores, not based off those children's success or how they would rate the school. It's, hey, if you got all proficient on that, then you're great. If you got all A's and B's, great. That's all they care about. Because at the end of the day, they don't care about your child individually. They just care about the number. If your child's 87240 and 87240 does well, great, they passed. Regardless if they can ever get a job or have a house or have a successful marriage or anything else. They don't care. It's not, they don't give a shit about that. What I was going to say, in my state, they introduced state testing. It was originally designed back in the 80s to test the teachers. The first year they did it, over half the teachers failed. They immediately changed it to test the students. The first year it was meant to test the teachers and see what they were teaching, how effective they were. The teachers union said, yeah, this sucks. This didn't work very well. We're now going to have a test of students because we always did that, right? Yeah. Nothing to see here. No, nobody failed. This is fine. This is not a reflection on a bad education. No. And it's scary because my state's supposed to have one of the highest education standards in the country. Yet I see kids that can't read and write, but they can pass the test. And here's one of the final problems I have. Knowledge retention is huge. In any job that you ever work at, knowledge, the ability to adapt and quickly learn and to retain that knowledge is huge. If you're a boss, the idea is you want to have an employee that you can teach them something once and they retain it, they remember it, and they know how to implement it. In education systems, the way they're done now, the idea is to teach me something, as long as I remember it for a day or two or the week before the test, I'm good. After that,
that's all.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I could have dumped out my brain the day I graduated, dumped out 90% of all the shit they ever taught me because it was irrelevant. And every single kid in high school knows this. Every one of them. They are not tested on how you retain this information. Can you recall this information? How can you analyze and use it? No. It's only about short-term recall, which is a detriment because in any single, I don't want to say every other, but basically any other career you could think of, you build off of years of experience.
Mm-hmm.
You need to remember that shit. You need to be able to build off of it and learn and adapt and grow. So why they don't base this education system on the idea of you can grow and learn more, but have to retain that other stuff, number one, is beyond me. I think it's ridiculous. But it does these kids a disservice. By teaching to these tests, they are robbing these kids of being able to learn stuff long term. And instead, the teachers were simply too afraid of being called out for not being able to teach well enough. But it's also the flip side of, it's the unfortunate part of, if you're trying to teach all the kids, get a room of 40 kids to understand a topic at the exact same time, that's usually not going to happen. Some kids take a while to process it. Some kids will pick up on it instantly. Some kids need some time to conceptualize it and figure it out or look up stuff. Everyone's different, but they don't allow for that. because at the end of the day, the teacher is graded on what the kids know that day. And either it's pass fail, basically, essentially. It's either the idea of, either they get enough on the state numbers or they don't.
Yeah.
So it's a shame. But at the end of the day, it goes to show that the amount of money you throw into the education system doesn't mean anything. I remember the study back from 2016 where the average student in Chicago, they were spending about $15,000 a year on them. And they were one of the lowest.
Per student.
Yeah, per student per year. They were one of the lowest ranked schools in the country. There was a school in Denmark that spent just shy of $5,000 a year. And they're one of the highest rated schools in the world.
Wow.
All of it converted to US dollars at the same time. People wonder why they're spending 3 times the amount in Chicago. Why are they doing well? Number one, the curriculum wasn't doing very well because the curriculum really didn't make sense and didn't relate to those kids. Number two, they were taking a lot of classes and different things that really didn't relate to, that didn't help them to help with their career or what they wanted to do. And the other problem is, quite frankly, it also has to do with a culture problem. If you're not invested in that child's education or the school's not invested in that kid doing well, if all they care about is the numbers, they're not checking in, they're not going the extra mile. And in a lot of cases, American school systems, unfortunately, they resort to things like just assigning a ton of homework to make up for the lack of education time in the school. Because these school systems are overpacked and they don't have a lot of one-on-one time, they will just assign homework purely to make up for the lack of instructional time in class. Whereas in a lot of other countries, they don't necessarily assign homework nearly like America does.
Yeah, and a lot of studies are showing that homework is more detrimental than it helps. If you're struggling with something, maybe send something home, instructional shit, and a couple of like reinforcements type of problems. You don't need to send 50 fucking problems doing the same thing over and over with no instruction, no guidance, no support. It's just do the work. There's no support there. It's just repetition, and not all kids learn repetition. Guidance and support are better structures to learn from. The money aspect that you were talking about. Kids who are homeschooled, if they have active parents or instructor type people, because I know there's like group homeschool projects that are out there. If that's done right and done well, some of those kids come out so far ahead than other, even like high-end high schools.
Yep.
Dude, it is crazy how well off some of these homeschool kids are being. Back in my day, we used to make fun of the homeschool kids. And now, homeschool kids are pretty fucking smart.
It's almost because there's no substitute.
Not all.
Well, true.
Not all the homeschool kids are pretty fucking smart. But a lot of them.
Yeah.
A lot of them are. I do have to say, the proms probably get kind of weird.
Yeah. That's a little weird.
Dating would probably be kind of,
yeah. Unless you're in Alabama, that's acceptable.
But yeah, then it's fine. Game's game.
Yeah. But it is true that one of the things with education with most kids, it's really just instructional time that's devoted to teaching them these concepts. Because almost everything in education is a conceptual idea. And a lot of things for kids, it's either they understand it or they don't. To where you have to kind of figure out what the best methodology is, how to explain it to them, how to get them to understand it. So without that instructional time that's like one-on-one, for a lot of kids, they're just going to kind of yeah you, and they'll take the test, but they're not going to retain it or care about it. For a lot of homeschool kids, especially the U.S. federal, this is one of the few things that they actually did right. They did require, if you want to homeschool your kids, like you have to upload your curriculum to kind of keep them updated, to show exactly what you're teaching. And when you actually make people be transparent about what they're teaching people, it's crazy how good they can be. When you're like holding them, I don't know, accountable. who teach things that actually are useful. But he also goes to show that there are communities I saw, they'll get together like 5 or 10 families and they'll rotate who teaches. That way, one week they're teaching math because this parent comes in, then they have science and English or whatever. It's like the way we used to do it, but now with higher standards and all these different extra aids that we have nowadays. And some of those kids are seriously advanced. It's crazy, but it's more.
Can you? I'm sorry to step on you. Can you imagine if our schools were structured so that they spent a week at a time on a subject with a teacher that was not just engaging, but awesome at that subject? I mean,
that's what the Montessori schools do.
Wow.
So that's what my aunt did. So what she did, she was actually a teacher at a Montessori school where she had kids for 2 to 3 years at a time. Where the idea is she was their educator from like 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, or like 5, 6, 7. She'd have that same group of kids. So the idea is they would get to know what those kids are into. If they found a topic that all the kids were engaged at, they'd stay at it for days. Because as long as we get to these topics by the end of the year, it doesn't matter when we learn them. As long as they learn them and retain it and understand it. One of the fundamental problems we have that I don't know why we're not using, if we want to use the internet for all this stuff, why not make the curriculums 100% on the internet for any high school, or middle school, elementary school, all that, and let the kids be able to walk between classes and say, all right, cool, I'd like to just do this today. We're doing this today. We do this today. Be able to learn at your own pace as long as you get it done by this time frame. I'm obviously not saying they could do willy-nilly, do whatever, but you get my point. With a little bit less structure, but a little bit more of being upfront about this stuff, you get some kids that I bet you, hell, they'd be done with high school by the time they're 14. Because they're just into it. And for some of them, that might be really good. But for some people, there would be no shame. Maybe if some people aren't ready to be done with high school until 19 or 20. Because I'm not doing that to shame people. It's just everyone's different. But we have a system where we force people, at this date, you're done. You're now an adult, whether you're ready for it or not. And that's not necessarily fair to some people.
I have met people in my life who were not ready to be adults until they were 30.
Yeah, we can't keep them in the system that long. But but I agree with you, though. So it's a very...
And also, alternative types of classes, even like using games to teach theories.
Yeah.
And concepts, rather.
Mm-hmm.
Take a game like Magic the Gathering.
Mm-hmm.
That is a game that can teach social constructs, strategy, math, reading, comprehension. Because good God.
Well, that's the thing is, there's a lot of things you can use that can focus on knowledge retainment. And so one of the things they say, knowledge and wisdom, is where knowledge is the ability to retain something, but wisdom is to be able to actually utilize that information effectively, to be able to sort through it and actually use it. So it's one of those things where there's a lot of other games, but also various different things you can use to reinforce this education.
Uh-huh.
Sorry, just adjusting something 1 second. But at the same point, there's a lot of other interests that kids can get into. For example, like, unfortunately, at my high school, they introduced a robotics class the year I graduated.
Oh,
I would have loved robotics or coding. They never had a coding class until 2 years after I graduated, even though I was pushing for stuff like that. I was pushing for computer classes. My computer class, you know what they taught me how to do?
Type.
Google SketchUp, how to do a cylinder, how to do a square. Oh, chapter 3, how to do a rectangle. Oh, it was crazy. You can make the square longer. But the sad part is, this is stuff that, like, you can fucking figure out. Like, this is nothing easy. Nothing simple. This is stupid. But there are things that they can teach these kids that not only can align with what their interests are, but also give them marketable, useful skills. At the same point, why don't more high schools partner with community colleges? This is the part that really gets me. I spent all that time doing advanced placement courses in order for colleges to say, yeah, but we don't recognize those credits. I spent all that time in high school taking what's supposed to be a college level course for them to say, no, we don't recognize it. We don't want to do it.
No good.
I could have just taken a fucking college course and actually gotten college credit for it and been less effort.
Uh-huh.
I think there needs to be more of a blurred line when it comes to when you're done with high school, when you start like community college and doing stuff like that. That needs to be something that's way more fluid. Because there are some kids that should be able to do some of that stuff. Like if I had the option to do, if I could take in the sound engineering and music classes that I took in college back in high school, I would have probably taken a completely different trajectory in life. But I didn't get access to that information until I was older and had to pay for it. And then I was like, oh, this is going to go a different way, which good and bad, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's a lot where these kids are missing because they're so focused on these academic things. Like, you have to remember all the dates that happened for this thing in history, but they don't understand history thematically. I don't know if you know where I'm going with that. So there's a bit of an aside that's going to take me like literally 30 seconds to say this.
Okay.
I'm sick of history classes that they focus on dates and when things happen and not understanding history in a thematic manner. The idea of these themes that keep repeating. Like the idea of empires rising and falling. Why do they rise? Why do they fall? What happens? Look at the rise and fall of like the Roman Empire, the Greeks, the Egyptians, even the Eastern and Western Roman Empire, Germany. Look at what America's going through right now. Yeesh, that sounds very fucking familiar. But history always repeats itself. If you were to ask kids nowadays who went to high school, how is American politics and history similar to Roman history in like 300 to 400 AD? They'd be like, I have no fucking clue. But if you look through history, rather than less on the dates when things happen, because that's an easy cop out, but more the themes of how did this empire rise and fall? Give me 2 paragraphs each. You'd be able to look and say,
some of those kids can't even spell empire.
Yeah, and that's it kills me because they're not looking at things for how it relates to what you do on a daily basis or what you might think about. Like for example, I was lucky in high school. I was able to take a physics class where we did a whole section on electricity. So like I understood what Ohm's law was. I know volts and amps and everything else and how all that kind of works. And that actually changed it for me because I was able to do like some wiring on my car and do some things around the house and around the farm and do some stuff. I got more mileage out of that physics class, like applied physics, than I did out of any English class.
Oh, absolutely.
I spent, you know what was required for me for my senior year for English class, which is the most bullshit thing, and I will never not be pissed about this. Do you want to know what I took an entire year of my 18-year-old life? Fucking poetry. My entire senior year was analyzing Shakespearean poetry. You know what I have never done a fucking day of my adult life?
Poetry.
Shakespearean poetry. It wasn't even modern poetry. No. She said that's the only poetry that's worth looking at. Because she subjectively has a degree in, Shakespearean poetry. So she's like, I run the English department, so that's what we're going to do. And let me tell you something. It's never once helped me. I never once learned anything from that I can actually use in daily life. And sure, I bet you there's somebody out there that learned one thing from that class. But I will tell you right now, she wasted
it wasn't you.
Hundreds of hours of my life, and I will never forgive you. I go out of my way to not forgive her. Because that is a waste of time. And I think I look at kids where you only have so much time to teach them everything. Every minute matters. So make the most of it.
I think with kids, especially kids that show aptitude and ability, if they're given access to some of the higher level courses and even college level courses early enough in high school, if they're able to complete them, they should 100% get college credit for those.
Oh yeah, 100%.
None of this, oh, well, that's cool that you took the class, but sorry, it doesn't count. No, I'm sorry. It really should.
It should.
That should 100% be with this restructuring of the DOE, that should be a thing.
Well, they should do more to promote kids to be able to push these things that they're into. And I would love to see, like, so out in your way, do they have a lot of trade schools? Like high school kids to go to? So my way, because I'm like in an academia center, they look down upon them. So
not surprised.
The part that always pissed me off was that if I went to a regular high school, I couldn't take classes in like automotive stuff or welding, or like we have a separate agricultural high school around here. So if you want to do anything with like farm animals, farming, raising animals, stuff like that, they wouldn't even touch it. You couldn't even you couldn't even grow plants at the high school I went to.
We have a whole college that's basically like for trades and agriculture, more or less.
Yeah, because
but it's a whole college.
Yeah, it takes a lot. Farming is actually surprisingly involved.
Yeah.
It used to be something that was taught down from person to person because it was so freaking involved. Around here, It was so distant that like they would kind of push you away from going down those roads. So sorry if I'm a little biased on some of this stuff. I know there's a lot of areas of the country where it's a lot more balanced, and I appreciate y'all. But unfortunately, not around here.
Yeah. Schools that have like FFA programs are great, but they're few and far between in like the ones where they're able to go and do a lot of the activities where the FFA would like matter. Because it's important. FFA, 4-H, all those kind of programs.
Yeah.
Because yes, without farmers, we don't eat.
How am I supposed to keep this bodacious bod in check?
I like to eat.
What? No.
I have a fuel tank that needs supplied. So,
to quote Patrick Starr, but I'm gonna starve.
Is mayonnaise an instrument?
Is mayonnaise an instrument? I love that one.
Yeah.
I will. I will be quoting Patrick Starr and SpongeBob until the day I die, and I'm okay with this.
I'll probably some kind of a quote on my deathbed. Besides,
no, I know what. Damn it! Damn it!
You there? Show me them titties before I go.
Give me one last yank, would you? Oh, man. Oh, I love the chat.
Oh, and the fact that's my son is even better.
The fact that your son has that name in chat,
I know.
just is that something that I'm not going to bring it up, but I apologize to the people listening on audio. So just so you guys know, we live stream these when we do them now. So we do have a chat box. People get to see us on Twitch. God, not that chat.
Don't say that about my son, Oside.
Anyways, so that's why sometimes you'll hear us laugh or there's stuff going on in the background. We stream this whenever we do the episode live, so that we get conversation.
Today's the day Oside ends up on the list.
Wee woo. Wee woo.
All right, so degradation of quality in the education system. Some of the concerns that we've had to endure are declining test scores, achievement gaps, lack of global competitiveness.
So consider like what a lot of Asian countries are doing, where they're focusing on two different avenues. Either one, they're focusing on having their kids be really good academically and being very strict about it, or option two, being very good, like business minded and oriented, which neither one of them is like the ideal way of doing it, but I will give them credit. At least they're making them being really good at math and science. Whereas our kids, not for nothing,
they suck at a lot of stuff.
It's because unfortunately this Common Core stuff is crap. I'll just say it. It's not worth it.
100% it
but
is.
Also, like, our tests don't really enforce anything. It's not anything of matter. They focus so much
and
on...
our kids have way too much time off from school. I never in my life thought that I would say that. A restructure that's been kind of getting floated around is doing 3 weeks on, 1 week off all year long. I'm not against it, I don't think.
Well,
so
I would agree with you. I feel like kids having that summer off, it just totally tunes off their brain.
Yeah.
If anything, they should have...
Because you're spending the first month or two reiterating what they learned throughout some of the year before.
And they're not going to remember.
That's 2 months down the drain.
Well, think about this, right? So for an adult human, going on vacation for a couple of weeks is not a big portion of your life. But for a 10-year-old to go on vacation for 3 months, that's like you or
That's
I.
a chunk.
That's like, imagine if you or I walked off the job for 6 months to a year and then expect to go right back in running.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. I'm going to be like, this chair feels weird. I don't even know how to fucking come in. Where do we have to be in at 8 o'clock? No. I don't even remember my login, like after being there for a couple of weeks, let alone 6 months to a year. People forget that time is relative to the proportion of time that you've been alive. So for those kids, I remember going back to school. Granted, I'm like I was good at academics. Even I was like, fuck this. Coming back in after the summer, I was like, no, this is ridiculous. This is insane. Yeah. They should have more vacations, but spread out.
Yeah. 3 weeks on, 1 week off.
I'd be okay with that.
And it's continual, so no more summer break.
Yeah. Because you don't get a break when you go to a job. You work, unless you're a school teacher, but.
Yeah.
Which most of them have
it's
jobs over the summer anyway, like I did.
It's got its pros, it's got its cons, but I mean, it's something that could be debated on. Yeah. And that's how a lot of private schools do it. It's how a lot of the charter schools run.
Why I don't even know why colleges do that.
Daycare schools, colleges, they run through the summer too.
But I don't know why a lot of colleges don't run through the summer as well. Like I feel like we should get rid of that whole 2-semester idea.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty dumb.
Go back to quarters. I don't know why they got away from that.
Because they're academics. They
know better. That's right.
They're smarter than us.
Yeah. The impact of socioeconomic factors on educational outcomes, the fact that the higher tax areas produce better grades for the students, we're showing that that's not always the case.
It's not a factor of money. It's a factor of time.
Yeah.
In more areas that have more money, more often there's going to be a one breadwinner household where there's another parent home and more involved with the child's education process. And
that's the key.
The problem I have seen more often is the fact of parents being so busy working or doing other things that they're not actively involved in their child's education. Whereas with a one parent, with a 2-parent household where one of them is not working, it pretty much guarantees that one of them is at least half-assed, like at least trying somewhat, or at least there.
Yeah. If there is a parent that is engaged with the kids in their school's school work, the outcome is vastly different than a kid that's just left to their own devices to try.
Because most kids are not going to regulate themselves going to school.
No, like most won't. Some 1 out of 100 might.
Yeah, you probably get honestly 5%.
Yeah,
realistically.
The rise of for-profit education and the effects of that on the quality of education. 100%. When they start to focus on profits over outcome, the kids lose every time.
And that's the current high school standards for 90% of the schools in the country. Is because their profit is based off of the bonuses the teachers get and the school gets for how proficient they are with state and or federal testing. So it's a money game. I hate to say it.
Yep. And off of that, the ever-increasing cost of higher education and its effects on the population. Yeah, it's great if you want to go be an engineer, a doctor, a lawyer. You're going to come out with damn near $200,000 worth of student debt. Isn't that great?
Actually, that's a low number for doctor or lawyer. A lot of doctors, disgusting. Veterinarians in my area are over $500,000 in debt typically. Yep. But veterinarians in my area, they charge a couple $100 an hour for basic stuff. And I mean, like, that's basic.
Well, now we know why they have to. Well, everyone wonders why the cost of things have gone up. It is correlative. There's your word of the day. These doctors and lawyers have to charge high rates to pay off the student loans that they have accrued.
Well, it's because those colleges are just allowed to put whatever price tag they want on it, which is fine, but there's no incentive to start another college to compete with them. And those colleges keep getting money from donors, and those donors are able to give them money so they have even more money. It's this revolving door of every year it will cost more whether you do anything about it or not.
But it also comes back down to the Department of Education. They don't set standards. They don't set limits on what can be charged for tuition.
So it's a combination. So one of the problems we had is back in the 80s, we started giving out Pell Grants to kids that did state testing and federal testing and stuff like that. And the problem is a lot of kids were just getting not only grants, but also FAFSA and federal funding that was automatically approved, which meant basically any kid could go to college, but they never worried about paying it back. Well, back when they first started the program, you could have colleges where you could just work at McDonald's and then pay off your college and still have an apartment and you were fine. Nowadays, when the average kid in college makes probably 15 an hour, 16 an hour, and that college costs 30 grand a year for like an average state college, 20, 30 grand, something like that. Probably more like 20. Good fucking luck. You're not doing that. There's no way.
No.
It's one of those things where every year, unfortunately, that value of education becomes lower because more people have that degree. So therefore you have to push higher to get the equivalent value. You're always chasing behind the ball. And unfortunately, there's always, not always, but for a lot of these systems, for a lot of these degrees, there are more people entering those than there are leaving. Because in an academic world, people can work until their 70s. Sometimes even I've seen professors in their 80s. So here's the problem.
Hey, he wasn't a professor, but we just had a guy retire, 84 years old.
That's what I'm talking about.
And he worked there for 62 or 64 years.
So here's the
same job.
The other problem with the economy. When it comes to non-labor jobs, because they can work so late, that means that job isn't open until 20 years after that job would normally be open. So that means for the last 20 years, somebody that could have gotten that job and got up the economic ladder can't. So we have this really weird problem of there will always be more people entering these highly academic jobs than there will be retiring or leaving. So therefore, their value goes down over time. And when the value goes down over time and the cost keeps going up, people wonder why they're upside down on their loans and they'll never be able to go anywhere. You know, so it's just something to consider to where for a lot of people, make sure if you're going to go to college, make sure it's actually a marketable skill that you're going to be able to get hired at. And also don't go into debt for $200,000 or $300,000, $400,000. I'm just going to be making a boatload of money.
Yeah.
Because I'm very fortunate that I haven't accrued any college debt because I was smart. I will tell you right now, I have friends that are lawyers. I make more money than them working on cars because I don't have debt.
That's insane.
Just saying.
The role of technology in education. Let's touch on our lovely friend AI. The use of AI for and in education, I think, will probably change the outcome of education. A lot of people are starting to kind of get the idea that it could replace education altogether in some facet. It's just going to be a matter of we just need to teach humans how to use devices to a certain extent, and then they'll get all the information they need. And oh God, it's WALL-E all over.
That's kind of the problem. It's a good and bad. I feel like AI as a reinforcement tool, if it pulls from the curriculum and the books and everything that's being taught by the teacher, I am for it. The problem I have with AI is it can get unbiased, or it could be very biased out of control very quickly. Yep. Or the other issue is it can lead to a scenario where it confuses one word for another word and then completely ruins, a lot of education, a lot of standards. It's one of those things where as an aid, however, it could be amazing. Because, for example,
using it instead of a tutor, 100% agree with that.
So I actually watched somebody, they were using, I think, Grok with a text-to-speech. They were recording a professor's lecture, and they would record it to text, and then they'd ask Grok to make an overview, and it would do like a summary overview, and then they would ask Grok to make note cards, like flashcards. So then they would literally just take a nap during it, go home, look at it, figure it out, listen to it, and then it'd be all set. And they'd be way more productive than just being there trying to listen. which I believe has options, that is awesome. I wish I had that. That'd be great.
Oh, yeah.
Because especially as dumbass me, first semester college was like, I'll take an English class at 6 in the morning. You know what I did at 6 in the morning during a college class?
You were trying to sleep.
Dude, seriously, I got yelled at like a couple of times for falling asleep. I'm like, sorry, it's 6 in the morning. They're like, why'd you take a 6 a.m. college class? And I was like, I thought 18-year-old me would be way more energized than I am. So,
right? Yeah, no. My 18-year-old can barely get out of bed at 6 o'clock in the morning, let alone 10 in the morning some days.
You know what though? People forget that humans are naturally that way.
Yeah, I know.
You know, that's
some humans can fire off right in the morning. Other humans are designed to be up late at night.
I'm if you wake me up early in the morning, I'm dangerous. Like I have not processed who I am yet or what's going on. You might be a threat. Like if you wake me up in the middle of the night, I am not pleasant. So
yes,
everyone's got their own thing. That's why I really think
if I get woken up certain ways in the morning, that I am quite pleasant.
Hell yeah, brother.
And I'm very nice to be around.
Yes.
But that's that's not for the podcast.
Hashtag after show. But
yes.
But no, it's more the case of that's what I really feel like I hate to say it. I do think that because the curriculum should be all online, I do feel like if the kids want to stay home and just do the work, if you're like, yeah, I don't feel like going in today, I'd rather do it at home, catch up.
That is one thing that the fucking COVID started to show, that the online options are there. So sick days, snow days,
doesn't matter.
All that shit can kind of go away, especially with the AI and intervention bullshit.
Well, this is what I'm getting at. If I was president, I would introduce a bill where the idea is all high school, middle school, and high school classes are to be recorded and posted online on the school website. All reading materials, homework, tests, quizzes, everything is posted online as well. That way you have the choice. Either you can stay home and watch it, either live or as a recording, or you can go in and take it in person. I'm the kind of person I would prefer in person, personally.
Yeah.
Because that's just how I am. But there were days where, like, when I had family members that died, or when I had shit going on, or like, I'll never forget, like, my cat passed away that I had him for 21 years. It's like, he grew up with me. Shy Guy, he grew up with me. He was my buddy. And when he passed away, I was like, I'm not going to school today. Like, fuck that. I had to go out back and bury him. It was an emotional day. I would have loved to be able to, like, all right, at least I can do it online. I can let my teachers know, hey, this happened, I won't be in. Because honestly, at least in my experience in college, do you know how many professors, as long as you do the tests on time, they don't give a flying fuck. They're like, yeah, things happen, cool, whatever. Let me know later on. We'll figure it out. That way, I also feel like that's why the parents can also keep the kids in line. To say, like, I know you have a test today. I know what's being taught in that class. Maybe it's because if I was a parent, I'd be really fucking nosy too and want to know, be like, what are you actually teaching my kid? Because I don't trust them. After the shit I've seen with sex ed classes and other stuff. That's just atrocious.
I still can't wait to see you become a parent.
That terrifies me. Don't you fucking dare. No. Put that away. Put that back or so help me. Put that away. No.
Throwing the juju.
No. Maybe someday, but not anytime soon. My problem is, I will say this, if and when I ever become a father, I am so sorry to whatever school system has my kid. Because I would be that parent that would be up your ass. I'm sorry. I will say that in advance.
Yeah.
But no, I don't know why they don't use these resources though for these kids. Because imagine,
I think it's mostly because the teachers don't know how to use them and they're not being shown how to use them.
But most of the teachers now at this point are like 40 and under. At least that I'm seeing around here. Like, just fucking learn. It's not hard. You don't even have to do anything. I think most of the teachers use the same tests from like 5 or 10 years in a row.
The last 20 years.
But they never change them, which is kind of fucking lazy. Like, not for nothing, but come on.
Yeah. I saw the best Trivial Pursuit question on Facebook yesterday.
Oh,
It was from 2008. It said, which actor has not been Batman? Ben Affleck, Christian Bale, Val Kilmer, George Clooney, and who was the other one? I think that was it.
buddy.
But it's like, this is historically inaccurate now.
All they're missing is what's his name? That was just Robert Pattinson.
Oh, yeah.
But the one they're
Yeah.
missing. Or Adam West, that's true. I forgot about Adam West.
Adam West, that was the other
yeah.
one. That was the other one, yes.
Oh, Adam West.
Yes.
Is it sad that I know Adam West better from Family Guy?
Thank you. Right?
Because the Adam West Batmans, they're so funny. They're stupid, but they're funny.
Yeah. They're terrible.
God.
But they set the stage.
Although, quick aside, because I want to have this discussion.
Okay.
I still vote Christian Bale's the best Batman ever.
I have to
Okay,
agree. He was
Good,
my favorite
good.
one.
As long as we're on the same page, I'm happy with that.
Yes. Oh shit! Did the stream end?
Oh, let me check.
Oh
No,
god!
stream's still up. Oh, nope. I think it might have.
No, it is not. I'm sorry.
What happened?
Oops. Sorry about that, guys. Yep. Sorry.
Oh,
I hit something.
well, what did you hit?
I don't know.
Well, hit the not that.
I will hit the not that next time. I don't know. Can't have a show without a pippage.
A
Pippening.
Pippening? The pippening.
Don't push the buttons, Pip.
Say no to the buttons. What?
Yeah. Yeah. So historical inequities shaped the current education. How have historical inequalities, I think you meant to say there,
Oh, yeah.
shaped the current education system?
So there is a bit of a problem there because, okay, I will give some credence to the fact that there have been issues with underfunded areas not getting basic resources. Because I have seen points like look at a town like Flint, Michigan, for example, to where I remember there were issues not only with the water system, but also like not having enough tax revenue to have like actual textbooks to be able to have like working chalkboards or dry erase boards, stuff like that. There are many areas that up until a few years ago, they really struggled to have basic supplies for those teachers. And I find it very, 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 very wrong that teachers have to pay out of their own pocket for those supplies for the classroom when I'm already paying taxes to have that stuff in there anyway.
Right.
I always found that to be incredibly rude and wrong. That shouldn't be the case. So there were some historical inequities in terms, or inequalities in terms of the resources available for those schools. But I do have to place some credence to, at the end of the day, having a good teacher is far more about that person's capability as a teacher rather than them just going to a good school. Some of the best teachers I ever had were not actually teachers. They were just good people that wanted to help other people, that volunteered and that did stuff. And some of the worst teachers I ever had were some of the ones that were most highly educated. Because quite frankly, they had their head up their ass. So, and maybe it's because I come from like a farming background. I'm very like practical, real. And I just can't stand like higher academia. I tried to, didn't work out for me.
Yeah.
But that's just
Pros and cons of federal involvement in education. I think we've spent the last hour and a half talking about that. So,
no, there are no pros. I to be real, I really don't think there are any pros because before
outside of possibly No Child Left Behind was a crock of shit.
Yeah, it did not work.
No,
but they meant to say was absolutely every child was left behind. That's what it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
No Child Left Behind was a joke. And by the way, I will always blame Michelle Obama for my shitty lunches. Fuck you.
Yeah, she screwed the lunch program.
Yep.
When so many kids depended on those lunches every day as their only real food for the day. I'm sorry, but no.
So A fun fact, this really pisses me off. Not a single school lunch that I could find around here when I was in high school was actually nutritionally at all based on what kids need. Because you know what they always had a lacking of? Protein. You know what they always had an overabundance of? Carbs. You know what they didn't?
Carbs, sugar.
Yes. So you'd get home and crash. You know what we used to have for lunch? It was like at least once a week. Fucking French toast sticks in a shit ton of maple syrup. Yeah.
God.
Do you know what that does not do well with? Oh yeah, most kids. Because the serving size was like 4 or 5 of the French toast sticks that were like huge and a bunch of maple syrup. Yeah, you'd be good for an hour, then you would fucking crash at like 1 o'clock. The amount of times I took a nap in history class because I was like, I'm out, buddy. We're done. I'm going night.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and then like the wheat pizza. I remember reading about that.
Whoever
Michael Obama did some terrible things.
Careful. We're not.
Get a knock on my door. It's gonna be killer.
No. We are not touching that topic with a 10-foot pole in this podcast.
No, because they have a pole that touches back.
Be careful. The only thing we could touch on is Michelle Macron possibly not being a woman, but that's a different thing. Not Michelle Macron, whatever her name is. Frickin'.
Right.
I forget her first name, but that's a whole different thing. But no, we're not touching the Michelle Obama one. I like my life. No thanks. I choose life.
Right? Yes. What's the most promising outcome or the most promising solution for improving educational outcome? Power back to the people, I think.
Yeah. What I would say is definitely let high schools compete with one another for the opportunity to educate your kid. Definitely let them specialize as well. Let these high schools become good at certain things, kind of put their money towards what they feel like is best, and vote with where you live. You know, if you like that school system, live there. If you don't.
Yep.
But I guess the biggest thing, and this is kind of easy for me to say as a non-parent, be involved with your kid's education. If you give a shit, be involved. Be on the school board, show up to meetings, show up to PTO meetings, do stuff, be there. Because as I learned, some of those parents can be very, very, very persuasive in certain things and make things happen that you wouldn't even realize as a teacher. Things go down. So be involved. That's the biggest thing I would say is also, and also not for nothing, your child's education outside of the school is just as important as inside the school. Have them take hobbies and other stuff outside of school. That was my biggest thing too, is like I took multiple instrument lessons. I took karate. I learned how to ski and snowboard. I did
play the skin flute.
No. I did not go to Catholic school. Thank you. It's the case of I took a lot of things outside of school, and I learned stuff around the farm, learned how to weld, work on cars, things like that. So for me, I was very well rounded. I'm just going to ignore you laughing in the background. So it's one of those things where it's easy to get wrapped up in high school education or middle school being their source of education. The things that these kids will remember outside of school are going to be as equally, if not more important. So
now I know what my girl felt like over the weekend. I almost choked.
Almost? I'm sorry, buddy. Sorry, little one. So what's that Ralphie May skit? Every kiss begins with call. Oh man.
Oh, I love that skit.
So
how has the rise of technology affected the education system positively and negatively? And a caveat to that, how would you feel if your child, or how would the children feel potentially, if their teachers were replaced by AI-controlled robots? Touch into the last couple episodes.
So, I feel like you can't replace a person in an educational system. You can have them as
with a really, really, really good AGI.
I think okay. Hear me out. If you did a system where the robot was teaching to the class as a whole, and the person was identifying the kids that needed the separate instructional help, that had some questions, comments, concerns. I think there's a way to do it where you could blend both. But I feel like an education setting in a traditional classroom, you're always going to need a person to kind of read the room, talk to people, see what's up. Maybe there's a day where AI becomes good enough to replace people with that, but I find that hard to believe, but it's possible. Would I feel comfortable with that? Really, I don't care how it's done as long as the quality of the education is good and like my kid retains the information and gets something from it. But yeah, with AI, I'd rather see AI programs be used in text-based, to where instead of getting textbooks, they get an iPad and it has all the textbooks on it and they have an AI program built into it that helps them with their homework and study and tests and everything. That's a different story.
I will say, giving the kids tablets and whatnot with PDFs of all their books on it, I very much support that. My lower back supports that, because I remember essentially lugging a military rucksack full of books and shit through my high school, carrying all of my books around. That had to be a good 40 pounds back in the day. I mean, yeah, I was, swole as fuck back then, but shit.
So
some of these kids can't do that.
So I'm learning as I'm getting older, I actually have a possible rotator cuff injury.
Yay! Welcome to the club.
Ever since I turned 30, it's all fucking downhill. It sucks. But
yeah,
but
much.
I used to carry like a mail bag, bag, kind of like the mail mailman bag. And I would have, because of all the extra classes I took and all the extra stuff and equipment I would carry, my bag was sometimes 60 pounds, if not more. I also had a bag. I did stuff my friend in it. It was it was made from like a mail carrier. So my friend Derek literally got into the bag, and I closed the flap up top, and I walked into class and just set it down on the counter, and just randomly throughout the class, he just popped up and was like, "Hi." It was great. You know what the crazy thing is? I still have that bag. The guy that made it was a local guy. He was a mail carrier that got sick of all the bags getting destroyed. He made this indestructible mail carrier bag. Nice. I love it. One of the best purchases ever. But anyways,
very nice.
I literally have a rotator cuff injury because of all the bullshit I used to carry. And I had a teacher. I apologize to Mr. Ninos. I have to message him because he's one of my favorite teachers ever. He told me that's going to hurt you when you get older. And I said, nah, I'll be fine. Son of a bitch. He was right.
Yeah, no. And something that my son just pointed out in chat, that the schools won't allow AI. When AI is everywhere, they won't have a choice.
There's going to become a day where you won't be able to check for AI. Give it 6 months to a year. I bet you money once Grok. Fun little fact. Did you know that Twitter, which is X, just got absorbed by Elon's AI division? Uh-huh. So that's going to be training the new version of Grok, which will be out in a few months. I'll tell you this right now. Yeah. Give it 6 months to a year. You will not be able to tell the difference between AI and a person in text-based like that.
6 months to a year. Within a year. What else is supposed to happen within a year, Gibbs?
2026.
The singularity.
Oh, yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, and then after that, our podcast could be just AI episodes at this point.
Yeah, it'll be AI versions of us generating new episodes. So yeah, good night, everyone. It was good while it lasted.
Right? Either that, or we'll just have a massive budget upgrade for for free. Because imagine AI generating these entire episodes.
I try to imagine AI trying to mimic my sense of humor. I think it's going to cause a core meltdown. My fucked up sense of humor could be the saving grace of humanity, Gibbs. You realize that? Here's the best part. I'm not hearing a no.
Saving grace is a little. By the way, Wookie, I appreciate that comment, and I will be your emperor. I appreciate it. So, anyways, but your sense. The problem is, if everyone had your sense of humor, then the largest department on Earth would be the HR department. We'd all be in jail. That's the problem.
Just imagine if it got copied and all the AI developed my warped sense of humor.
Well, the problem is it would just be an R-rated AI. I'd open up Grok and be like, "Sup, fucker, what are you doing?" I'd ask it a question and be like, "Fucking blow me, you bitch." Like,
oh, God. You could tell AI generated items much easier.
I know, right? Oh, it's gonna be wild.
Yeah. So let's go back over the picture that we talked about at the beginning. Now that we've kind of touched tips on a lot of the points from the episode. To reiterate, $2 trillion have been spent on education in America. And adults coming out of high school cannot grow their own food, build a house, fix a car. They are economically and historically illiterate. They are unaware of proper nutrition, how the human body actually functions. They struggle with depression. They have zero skills on money management. They don't know how to invest. They don't know how to use tax strategy. Let that sink in.
It's insane.
$2 trillion. That's pretty gross.
What's crazy to think about is that's what we spend basically a year for our entire military industrial complex. For everything.
No, that's our entire GDP.
Wait, really? Don't we have like a $2 trillion budget last year for military? Hold on. I'm going to look this up live.
Yeah. I looked it up for the UBI episode that we're potentially planning.
Fiscal year of 2024, October 1st, 2023 to September 30th, U.S. federal government spent $6.75 trillion. Which, by the way, that's fucking terrifying, just saying.
Maybe I had old numbers. Yep. What was it for 20?
Sorry, it was 850 billion. So that's actually that's about 3 times.
Yes, that's what I thought. I was going to say I knew it was under $1 trillion for the military budget, at least.
That's insane.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, that's over the course of we've spent that money over the course of decades. However, that means at the federal level we spent all this money. We ain't got shit to show for it.
No,
and our kids are very well educated on what TikTok?
Social media. Yeah. TikTok, yeah, that's where TikTok is where the vast majority of the Gen Z and upcoming Gen Alpha get their news.
Which, you know what, though? I hate to say it, it's probably the least biased platform when it comes to news, because I use it for news. And I get a lot of stuff instantly. A lot of stuff that gets banned on, like, Instagram.
I hate TikTok.
You know what? I feel like if they just made it so you could kind of select things a little better, I feel like a lot of people would actually use it, but because it's biased to push a certain type of stuff.
Has it been sold? Is it under new management now?
I don't even remember. I can't tell you.
Because that was the thing with the Chinese algorithm. It pushed the idiocy towards Americans and it pushed the tech and innovations toward the Chinese people.
See, what you do is you actually, on TikTok, the way you change your algorithm is you flag things that you don't want to see and then like and save the things you do, and eventually it fixes itself. The only problem I have, so for a while my algorithm was really great because it was all just politics, news, gaming, music, guitar stuff. But Molly sends me one fucking thing about like women's like leggings. And then now I'm just getting women trying to sell leggings with butt photos all day long. And I'm like, I swear to God, I'm not looking this stuff up. And she knows, like, I'm not. But it's like,
right.
TikTok, could you not do that, please? Leave me alone.
Yeah. It's funny how algorithms work with things like Facebook. Like some of my recent stuff. Yeah. lots of mushy woo woo shit has been popping up on my reels. And I thought it was hilarious because just like the timing of it. So but yeah, anything else you wanted to add into this?
No,
or
I just it's one of those things. I feel like people just need to start being more involved with their kids in local education and understand that there are better solutions out there. You just have to do some research, figure it out, and really understand that until we make some fundamental shifts, unfortunately, this is going to stay this way for a while. And really, to bring it back to the original topic, Trump defunding a large part of the DOE is not going to make a negative difference to really anybody out there that has kids in the educational system right now. Anything that they were overseeing it literally has nothing to do with what your child does from a day-to-day basis. So
I think initially there will be fear, but it should probably be a net positive.
Yes.
If it's allowed to propagate.
Oh, yeah. I'd agree with you 100%. Because it's one of those things where we might see a short-term, loss of a couple of things, but long-term getting these things established by the states and letting people being able to be involved with it. I think that's the biggest problem. When you establish something like the Department of Education federally, that means that every kid in America has to learn the same shit. Does every kid in America need to learn the same thing? No. If we're going to be a melting pot, let's let these kids learn different things and then bring all that stuff together. Mm-hmm. That's kind of the point. Someone that lives in Maine doesn't need to deal with the same climate that someone in Arizona does. So, why not have that different education? Because honestly, the amount of high schools I know that don't teach about things particular to your climate, your environment, your topography, different information, how to grow crops in your area, how to do all this other stuff. So many people just, it's ignored.
Yeah. If the federal government is allowed to control it, you end up with potato soup. If you leave it to the states, well, then you get wonderful things like vegetable soup or some kind of wonderful Thanksgiving dinner eventually.
And that way you can actually participate in it. You can vote on it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest part of it.
Yeah. I don't feel like kids in LA are going to worry too much about farming like the kids in Kansas.
Yeah. It's just everywhere. People forget we are a country of 50 little countries all working together. So let's treat it as such. That was the idea of the Articles of Confederation, which then became the United States. The idea that, we technically, per our government, how the republic is supposed to work, it's 50 separate states or 50 separate countries that all work together, and we allow the federal government to have some power over limited things. So,
yes.
Let's work with such.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like that kind of covers most of our, at least my discussion on that topic, because this is a topic that I'm very into, and there's more I could talk about, but we're running up to 2 hours, so.
Yeah, and it's getting late. It's almost 10 and it's a work night, so.
I'll be up a little bit late editing, but that's fine.
Yeah. So this is an interesting week. Things are going to be a little off kilter for our schedule. Life happened to Gibbs, and I have plans this weekend, so we're going to do the next episode on Saturday.
Yes.
So just a heads up, this will be a compressed week.
Basically how it works, it's always either a Saturday, a Sunday, or a Monday. Basically. We try to shoot for Sundays, but sometimes I get held up, sometimes you get held up. It's how it goes.
Well, Saturday we've been trying to shoot for.
Yeah.
Just because it works out better for us sometimes, but we try to do what works for y'all because, you guys have been showing love and we're trying to show love back.
We appreciate you guys in chat and everything and everyone showing up. Yeah.
Turn out the lights.
I think this week, I do want to say this for everybody. I want to try to get that account for the AI editing thing for us for this. Yes. I want to do that this week. I want to see what it does.
Yes. Get the AI involved.
Yeah, why not?
We'll Eiffel Tower that AI, make it work for us.
I don't know what that means, but I don't like it. I don't know what that means. I'm scared to know what that means. I need an adult here. Adult, help me. No. Oh, Jesus. But I guess I was gonna go. Before we end, I was just quickly gonna go to chat and see if anyone chat had any comments, concerns, thoughts. You know, any.
I think everyone's concerned about me.
Cons-
I do want to give a teaser though. Just a little tickle teaser. Next week's episode is going to be very fun. I'm not even sure if we can have it on Twitch, but we're going to try.
You know,
I didn't consider that till just now.
that one might have to be a an upload only.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll have to see about that.
I'll have to look into it. Next week, or this weekend, whatever, our next episode, we are going to delve into the ever murky topic of American gun culture.
Oh, yeah.
That should be a very fun one.
Oh, yeah.
The history of freedom as told by the Freedom Seed Dispenser.
Precisely.
Yes. So it might be an upload only, but we're going to look into Twitch's terms and see what we can get away with. We may try to use some props for that one. I don't know. That's probably why we won't be allowed to use Twitch.
Oh, yeah, because I don't even know if we can use fake ones.
Yeah. But we're going to try to work on a nice intro for that one. Trying to work up something flashy for you guys.
Yeah, that'd be.
Let's see. We got a question here. Would it be worth it to get in trouble for using AI to write your useless
ELA. Yep.
ELA essays? Kind of like should not teens be able to go pro?
So I do have a thought on that.
Okay.
So the problem I see with that is if you let AI write it for you, that takes away your ability from thinking about it and your ability to analyze, conceptualize, figure out exactly what the discussion is. But I do understand English and language arts, ELA. A lot of the times those classes, I get it. They're boring. They're not great. What I would say is I wouldn't allow AI to write it, but I would allow AI to summarize and give you like a bullet point list about what you're talking about. Because I look at AI where I think in a lot of schools for the younger grades, it should be allowed as an organizer. So if you're having problems like trying to organize things and get things straightened out, I have no problem with that. But I think you should still have to write it in your own words. You know what I mean? Bring those words like from you, from what you know. Sure, you might use AI to help you say, hey, give me a synonym for this word, or help me explain this, help me do that. But I feel like you should have to put those words, together yourself. But that's just me. Because I don't know if I was a teacher, I would just tell those kids that, be like, just don't friggin' go on Grok or ChatGPT and just be like, write me this.
Yeah. So if I was going to use AI, I would say maybe have it do a couple of comparisons, and then you take the time to read over them and do some of your own comparison. See which one you like. Maybe do a couple of rewrites and some edits. Feed it back through. Definitely use it for maybe like language, punctuation, grammar.
Yeah,
that kind of stuff. I'm definitely on board for using AI. But if you're going to use it, make sure you're putting in bare minimum 50% of the input to it. You've got to use critical thinking and suggestion to get it there. That way it's not just, hey, Grok, I need this information on this topic, this many words, this many lines, whatever. Boom.
And
that's cheating.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Just make sure it's your own words.
But if you're putting in a prompt that takes you 10 minutes to write, I feel like that's a little bit more effort. And then if you submit the prompt as your part, maybe that goes and counts for something. I don't know.
I think that the whole point of doing those assignments is to make sure that you are using your brain to figure it out. And that's the part that matters the most. Like if you use these other stuff to help you reorganize or reword, that's one thing. Just make sure the concept in that is coming from you. That's really the part. That's with
Absolutely.
any part of education, no matter what it is. Make sure it's coming from you. You know, if you use it to spell check or double check a few things grammar wise or whatever, organize, I don't think anyone's going to ever say anything. Just make sure your thoughts are your own. Because then the thing is, when you get out in the real world and have a job, I'll tell you this right now, you can't go chat GPT or Grok and say, hey, what should I do? That's not how this works.
Yeah.
It's not how that works.
But what you can do is check out our socials.
Yes.
Join us on the Discord. That'd be great.
Absolutely.
Join us for the live streams when we have them.
Oh, yeah.
These are getting
Yeah,
good.
I'm really enjoying having the live stream, honestly.
Right.
Yeah.
Twitch.tv/now_we_consume_podcast. Because I'm a bastard that likes to take your type.
Yeah, we definitely have those links as well on the Discord. That's our hub for anything and everything to do with this podcast. As well as, Facebook, Instagram.
Join
you
us.
Know, exactly.
One of us. One of us.
And I think besides that, I think we're probably ready to wrap this one up, huh? Nothing
Oh,
else,
yeah. Absolutely.
Well, as always, I want to appreciate everybody that, came here in the live chat, as well as everyone that's listening at home. Definitely feel free to check us out on any of the socials or anything else that we recommended, just to get in touch with us if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or thoughts. And I want to give a special shout out to my co-host here, Pip, for joining tonight and being here as always. Making me question reality itself.
Dude, I fucked up earlier. I fucked up.
Well,
I didn't do noodles and nipples earlier.
well,
My whole world and reality have fallen out of place.
if you want, you could do them
Woo! Dip, 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 dip.
before I can even get the words out of my mouth, you bastard. I was in the middle of saying, well, if you want to do it during the out, and then you went ham. You just went.
Full ham.
See, Wookiee chat said, "What did I just witness?" And unfortunately, you witnessed. How can I make this a Twitch appropriate?
Part of my warm-up routine.
Yeah, it's usually what he does before. So I don't know. That's how you fluff yourself for the episode. I don't know. It's
Well, I can't fluff on stream.
hopefully not.
Listen, we don't stream on the hub.
I know.
Maybe we should stream
That'd
on
be terrifying.
the hub.
Oh my god, the comments there would be bad. Oh no. No.
Oh god.
Oh no. I am so sorry to chat.
Yes, with my son in the chat. This is what you have to look forward to becoming, son. Get ready.
It's okay to cry. It's okay. It's okay to feel sad sometimes. See, I don't think we get that much money streaming on Pornhub because we'd have to hire like some bimbo chick just to stand there with her boobs out, just to get views.
Right?
Because that would be the thumbnail. That you just thumbnail that they click on like, oh man, it's two guys on a fucking podcast. What the fuck? It'd be rage bait on that. That's how that works.
Right?
The comments would be, wow, this was a tough wank, like that. This is tough, but still got it done, I don't know. Maybe that's how we reach the LGBT population, just get,
Right? Talk about the ultimate edge.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Alrighty. I think I need to go shower now. I'm a dirty boy.
I have no comment. I just, what's gonna be great when the AI picks up that last segment to put up online for no context. Oh man.
Oh shit. All right. Oh, okay. I'm gonna go breathe and get some water.
All right, sounds good. Well, thank you all for watching. We really appreciate it as always. I'm your
Love you guys. Thanks for hanging out.
and we will catch you on the next one.
See you then.
Into that.